SpaceX plans to develop a fleet of Starships to send the first humans to Mars in 2024. The company envisions a sustainable colony established on the red planet by the year 2050. Sending tons of cargo and hundreds of humans to Mars comes with an expensive price tag. Let's check the cost and then the different parts that make up the Starship. NASA invested for $150 million for launch of the shuttle, while SpaceX Falcon 9 it cost between $50 to $60 million. It is 87% cheaper than the shuttle, but Elon Musk has said that the cost of Starship launch could be as low as $2 million. That's why Elon on his tweet, he announced to his SpaceX employees that Starship is the #1 priority. The Starship is the first rocket system to be 100% reusable and built to be reused 1,000 times. It will be able to land itself back on a landing pad, be rapidly reused like an airplane. To date, SpaceX using the Falcon 9, and it is 70% reusable. Elon Musk wants to build 100 Starship a year, and all of this brings down the cost of launching the rocket, allowing for more cargo and people to be transported into space. Musk has said that it will cost close to $2 or $3 billion to develop the whole Starship project. Let's see the parts of the Starship. The Starship is part of a rocket system. The top section of the whole rocket system is where the Starship sits. It is the second stage, and its role is to carry cargo or passengers to space or other planets, and between cities here on Earth. There are two configurations, one for crewed missions and one for cargo. The bottom part of the rocket system, or the first stage, is what powers the whole system for the first part of the launch. It is called the Super Heavy Booster, and it is made up of rockets and a large fuel tank, which holds over twice the amount of propellant as the Starship that is on top. The Super Heavy Booster will bring the whole rocket into orbit before disconnecting and landing back on Earth, while Starship continues its journey with its own smaller fuel tank and rockets. For Starship's missions, such as going to the Moon or Mars, it needs a lot of fuel. So the Super Heavy Booster will return to Earth and be refueled. Another Starship with a cargo configuration, but this time be full of nothing but fuel, will be placed on top and act as another tanker. This will go into orbit and then refuel the first Starship, giving it enough fuel to make its long journey. Refueling in orbit allows the Starship to transport a larger payload of up to 100 tons, all the way to Mars. The Starship will be able to help build space settlements and space stations cheaper and faster because of its power and size. The Starship system will be the most powerful rocket in the world once it is built. The Saturn V rocket that carried humans to the Moon, the most powerful rocket in history, as it carried 48.6 metric tons to the Moon. Let's compare this to the Starship. Along with orbital refueling, it will be able to take 150 tons to the Moon. That is 100 tons more than the Saturn V rocket. And going to Mars, the Starship can carry about 100 metric tons. Compare that to the 2020, the Atlas V rocket with a mission to carry Mars Perseverance rover, which has a payload of just 4 to 8 tons. The area of the Starship that can hold humans or cargo, called the payload fairing, is 59 feet in height and a diameter of 30 feet. SpaceX also planning to use Starship like a passenger airplane that will carry people from one city to another here on Earth. Musk said it could carry up to 1,000 people at a time. When it comes to going to another planets, Elon Musk has said that the final Starship could be capable of carrying up to 100 people. We have already seen SpaceX send astronauts to the International Space Station. This is the first private company had built the infrastructure that could one day make space travel possible for everyone.
Back to planet Earth. Thanks for flying SpaceX.
This day heralds a new age of space exploration. We're gonna go to the Moon, we're gonna have a base on the Moon, we're gonna send people to Mars and make life multiplanetary.
SpaceX has big ambitions, and it plans to achieve them with Starship. SpaceX has proposed using the Starship for transporting demonstration spacecrafts that would be attached or integrated with the Starship and would carry out experiments and missions and then return to Earth. companies and government organizations that building space telescopes is in demand and launching into space. We can imagine how a large rocket such as a Starship would be able to transport large space telescopes and large inflatable structures. Space telescopes are getting larger, but are limited to the size of the rocket that can launch them. Starship will allow for much larger space telescopes and other cargo, and this results in better views of faraway planets. Astronomers are then able to study distant planets to see if there is life or if the planets could be habitable for humans, and maybe put factories in space that make products for sale on Earth, like human organs for transplant, cables, and other materials that needs microgravity to be built. And instead of building solid structures in space, inflatable ones could be used, making it faster to build in space since fewer launches are needed to transport materials. One inflatable module has been attached to the ISS in the past, but a larger rocket such as Starship will be able to carry much larger inflatable space structures, one that is even twice the size of the current International Space Station. For transporting passengers from one city to another on Earth, being able to go anywhere around the world in under an hour, Elon Musk says that Earth-to-Earth test flight might be into 3 years. SpaceX envisioned to build colony and city on Mars. To build a city on Mars, Elon tweeted that 1,000 Starships will be needed, as this will allow for 1 million tons to be transported to Mars for 20 years. As the orbits of Earth and Mars only align every 2 years, this could mean that a large number of Starships will be leaving Earth's orbit together every 2 years. For now, the goal is to use Starship for an unmanned mission to Mars in 2022 and passenger mission in 2024. But before this Mars city happens, a moon base will be built first. And the first major missions for Starships is when launching Starlink satellites. SpaceX can only fit 60 satellites into a Falcon 9 launch. With a Starship, they will be able to fit 400, according to SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell. Starlink launches would be a low-risk way of doing many test flights, and a way for SpaceX to earn money before Starship is used for passenger missions to Mars. There is the goal to start building a permanent base on the moon, and spaceships are needed to transport the building blocks. NASA has a program called Artemis, the goal of returning humans to the moon by 2024. There will be a station called Gateway that will orbit around the moon, much like how the ISS orbits around Earth, and rocket ships are needed to shuttle astronauts between the Gateway and the moon's surface multiple times. NASA has chosen 3 companies to develop this rocket ship shuttle. SpaceX is one of the companies that received funding from NASA in April 2020 to further develop their lunar landing system. A version of Starship, called a Starship Human Landing System, is designed to stay working on the moon, transporting astronauts back and forth to the Gateway, and because it will stay on the moon, this version of Starship will not have heat shield or air brakes, which are normally used for coming back to Earth. The first private lunar mission, called Dear Moon, is looking to launch as soon as 2023, and will take artists, film director, and architects and fly them around the moon. They will be able to come back and use their experience to create new works here on Earth. But that's not all. Elon Musk has tweeted about the next generation Starship that will be 18 meters in diameter, which is twice in diameter of the current 9-meter Starship. An 18-meter Starship would have about 4 times the internal space as the already 9-meter Starship. What would such a large rocket be able to transport into space? Starship is a very ambitious program and is now progressing faster as Elon Musk wanted to prioritize. The first test flight was in April 2019, and a total of 5 test flights have been completed. 3 of the most recent prototypes and test flights have reached up to 150 meters, while the next prototype, which is looking to launch later in 2020, is aiming to reach 20 kilometers. Elon Musk has said that the first orbital tests and cargo flight will probably happen in 2021. Elon Musk is a person who keeps pushing for faster and faster progress, saying that if a design is taking too long to build, then the design is wrong. This is the reason he scrapped the whole Starship design when it was being built in carbon fiber and switched to the steel design we see today. So as Elon Musk pushes for faster progress, with his eye on building a city of the future on Mars, we could see the Starship in action as soon as 2021.